Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is the place where you give us the sources, the articles, the research, and we do the digging for you.
Exactly. We cut through all the noise.
Our whole mission here is to give you that shortcut, to deliver the key insights and maybe some of the surprising details you need to be really well informed on a topic.
And today's topic is, it's a fascinating one.
It really is. Today we are opening up the archives to look at a career that was just defined by speed, by versatility, and by the very specific demands of the mid-1990s.
We're doing a deep dive into the professional life of Sid Deuce.
A key performer and later a director whose career really spanned this huge transformative period for the adult film industry. We've got biographical sources that lay out her professional timeline, her physical attributes, and maybe most importantly, the reputation she built as a classic superstar.
And that reputation is so critical.
Yeah.
You know, when we look at someone like Sid Deuce, we're not just looking at one person. We're really examining a blueprint for what it took to succeed during that industry boom, that window where VHS was peaking and studios just needed performers who were reliable and radically versatile.
So our goal here is to stitch together those 8 years of incredibly prolific work.
Yeah, and her shift after that into directing and even commentary. We have to go beyond just the stats and really understand the choices she made that led to this massive body of work. We're talking over 180 films.
Some sources say even closer to 200.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Let's start with the basics, just to set the stage for where this all began.
Sure.
The sources tell us Sid Deuce was born on August 6, 1970.
Out in Denver, Colorado.
Which means she was starting her career in her early 20s, right on the cusp of that huge mid-90s shift in culture and production.
And if you're trying to do any follow-up research on her or even just catalog her work, one of the first things you'll run into is a bit of data friction.
The aliases.
The aliases, yeah. She used a few, which wasn't uncommon back then, but it definitely makes it harder to trace her work.
We see Sid Deuce.
Yep, S-I-D-D-U-C-E.
And Sid D-U-E-C-E.
Right, also Sid with a Y.
Yeah.
And the colorful Sidlicious.
Delicious, right.
And for you, the listener, trying to piece this all together from different databases, these little variations, they really tell a story about how decentralized and, frankly, chaotic film cataloging was back then. It's a key detail.
And her way into the industry, it followed a pretty common path for that era. She didn't just jump straight into film.
No, she didn't. The sources show she started out as an exotic dancer around 1994. That seems to be the crucial first step.
And what was the motivation to make that jump from dancing to hardcore?
Well, the sources give us a pretty clear window into her mindset. She was already in that world, and she was reportedly enthralled by the booming nightlife.
Okay.
But the real driver seems to have been this mix of pragmatism and just enthusiasm. She talked about the professional perks, specifically the chance to have sex with beautiful people.
So it wasn't framed as some desperate move.
Not at all. It's framed as an active, conscious choice. She was excited by the scene, by the social side of it.
And that enthusiasm clearly gave her momentum. I mean, she made a splash almost immediately.
A big one.
Our first mainstream film, Adult Affairs, in 1994, this wasn't some small indie production. She's on screen with people like Nina Hartley, Julie Ashton, and Tom Byron.
Yeah, I mean, those are legends.
That's way more than a debut, right? That's an immediate signal from the production companies that they trust her. They see her as legitimate.
Absolutely. It established her market value instantly. Studios just don't pair a complete unknown with their most bankable stars unless they're absolutely confident in that new talent's ability.
And their versatility.
And their versatility, which, brings us right to the core of her legacy, the sheer volume of her work.
This is where the numbers just tell the story. Her timeline is short, but it's incredibly dense. She was active as a performer from about 94, 95 until 2002. So what, 8 years?
Roughly 8 years, yeah.
And in that time, she's credited with over 180 titles. And like we said, some sources push that number past 200.
It's a staggering amount of work in a short time.
That kind of output is exactly why she was called one-of-a-kid classic superstar. But the question is, what even made that possible? How do you do that?
Well, the output was the effect. Her defining trait was the cause. You have to remember, the mid-90s boom was all about the move to mass home video. Production quotas exploded.
So studios just needed bodies.
They needed performers who could plug into any hole in the schedule on any given day. And the sources all point to her radical openness.
What do they mean by that?
She was known for being willing to do, and I'm quoting here, practically any sex act, including fetish. In that kind of high-volume world, that versatility is gold. It cuts down on casting time, on production headaches. She became a professional utility player.
So when we look at the specific acts listed in her filmography, we're not just talking about a variety of partners.
Oh, not at all. We're talking about a huge variety of physical and technical demands. It's an exhaustive resume.
Can you break that down?
Sure. You could sort of group her work into three areas that really show her range. First, you have the high endurance, often boundary-pushing stuff.
Okay.
Things like cisting, XXL insertions, double penetration. That requires a huge amount of physical commitment and trust.
Right. Then what?
Second, she could handle the more niche markets. Things like bondage, femdom, tribadism in her girl-on-girl scenes. Stuff that required specific knowledge or technical skill.
And the third?
And third, she did all the standard but essential acts. Anal, pussy gaping, facial scenes. She moved between all these seamlessly. So for a production company, she could cover the work of 5 or 6 specialists.
That's the engine.
That is the engine that powered that prolific output.
So that one-of-a-kind description is less about, some kind of untouchable star power and more about her unique professional value.
Exactly.
But the sources also mention her pride and her acting abilities for the films. Why emphasize acting in an industry so focused on the physical side? Was that just marketing talk?
That's a great question. And I think it says a lot about the professionalization of the industry in the 90s. While some performers saw the work as purely physical, emphasizing acting suggests she was trying to bring some narrative weight to it.
Even in those extreme scenes.
Especially in those scenes. It suggests a commitment to the overall product, not just the physical act itself. She wanted to be seen as a serious professional, an interpreter of roles.
And that commitment led her to some pretty foundational projects for the era.
It did. Beyond her debut, she was in Kia Unmasked in '95 with T.T. Boy. And crucially, she was a key performer in Shane's World in 1996.
Okay, the inclusion in Shane's World feels significant. Why does that specific production company matter so much in the mid-90s?
Well, Shane's World really represented a shift in style, a little more gonzo, more reality-based than the slick, expensive studio films from the 80s.
Quicker, higher energy.
Exactly. And by starring in one of their earliest titles, she showed she could adapt to this new, faster wave of content production. She was right there at the creation of a new business model.
Before we move on to her post-performance life, let's quickly touch on this specific image she had. The sources get pretty detailed, and some of the details conflict, which is always interesting.
Right.
The consensus stats are pretty consistent. 5'6", about 121 pounds. Measurements are 34, 23, 36. This was the baseline look.
But like you said, when you're pulling from multiple sources over time, you get that data noise. So for anyone trying to get the details right, notice the conflicts. Eye color is listed as both blue and brown.
And bra size, 34B versus 34C.
Right, though to be fair, the sources are all clear that her breasts were fake enhanced, which tells you that her look was consciously designed to meet the market standards of the day.
But the body modifications, that's what really defined her image, right?
I think so. They connect her directly to that mid-90s counterculture aesthetic.
Specifically the anarchist symbol, that A in a circle on her inside right calf.
Just above the ankle, yeah. And another tattoo on her left shoulder blade, plus a navel piercing.
And that wasn't just decoration. That whole aesthetic, the visible tattoos, the anarchist symbol especially, it was a visual shorthand.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It signaled a certain edginess, a
Okay.
rebellious persona that was becoming really marketable as the decade went on. She didn't look like the polished stars from the 80s. She looked like the new generation.
And that image served her well until she stopped performing in 2002.
Right. But, and this is crucial, she didn't just walk away from the industry.
No, she made a really interesting pivot.
She did. She landed a position as a regular columnist for the Hustler Erotic Video Guide. Think about that move.
She goes from being the subject
To being the commentator. From being a review to being the reviewer.
Yeah.
She leveraged all that on-camera knowledge into a position of critical authority. It meant she kept her footprint in the industry without the physical demands.
It really shows a mastery of her professional world. She wasn't just a performer, she was a sustained industry fixture, adapting her role. And that whole trajectory, I think, gives us the single most compelling piece of insight from the sources, the career advice that was sort of distilled from her success.
Oh yeah, this part is great.
One of the final analyses in her biography gives this direct takeaway. It says that if you learn one thing from her career, it's that being prolific and open-minded will get you far in life. And it specifically says this applies to any career.
And that is the ultimate summary of her work, right? Her success wasn't an accident. It was built on two core principles: volume being prolific and flexibility being open-minded.
Her career really did define an era.
It proved that maximum output, combined with that radical acceptance of diverse professional demands, that "I love to get fucked" attitude, as one source put it, was a recipe for top-level success.
Yeah.
And her move to writing just cements that story of adaptability.
Okay, so let's pull all this together one last time for you, the listener, before we wrap this up.
Let's do it.
We've covered her origins, that incredibly powerful and efficient performance window from '94 to 2002, her very distinct '90s look, and that seamless pivot she made into industry commentary.
Right.
And we've also seen how the sources themselves connect her professional success, being prolific, being open-minded to general mainstream career advice, which raises a pretty fundamental question.
It does. It raises a question about the real-world value of skills that are honed in these extreme professional environments.
So we want to leave you with a final thought to consider.
When you look at these non-traditional skills that made her successful in this high-pressure field, radical openness to unusual demands, incredible endurance, or just the simple virtue of being prolific, which of those attributes do you think is actually the most valuable when you apply it to mainstream professional success?
Yeah, think about that advice from her bios. Which part of that has more power outside the world of adult film? Is it better to be the person who produces the highest volume of work, or the one who's just willing to accept any challenge that comes their way?
Something to chew on.
Cue on that. Until next time, keep digging deeper.